Good morning from a rather cold and damp Newark in Nottinghamshire in the UK. And I'm going to take you through a piece of mine which is called the D.O. Blues. It started life actually as a guitar piece called the A.O. Blues, but then when I was searching around for ideas for the advanced preparatory ukulele exam I wrote for VCM, I thought, well, this one would work just as well on the ukulele and maybe even better than it did on the guitar. I've also covered some of the work I'm wanting to take you through in one of my daily ukulele workouts, and this was number 50, and I put it as number 50, as I say on the link you can find from my sheet about it, that it is a kind of milestone. It's a really important idea, and it's all based around the problems and the lovely ways that you can do the chord D on the ukulele. But let's first of all just take you through the piece itself, then I'll go through what end up as my teaching notes for it. So this is the D.O. Blues. Okay, so there you have it, 12 bar blues based on this chord of D, and there all the way through, I used that version of it. Finger 2, finger 1, finger 3. Now if you request my sheet of the daily ukulele workout number 50, which is a free set of 80 lessons I gave through the lockdown in the UK, then you'll see I've put 12 of them on that sheet. On the one I've done for the international instructors, I've just put 4, but there were 84 that I found, in some including odd things like that where you're using the thumb to double bar. I'm lucky I can double bar or triple bar with every finger, and because then you can start combining other fingers with one where you're just stopping it in on 2 strings. It's a very popular one amongst classical players, I've noticed. So the first teaching idea in this is to get your students to find different ways of playing D that they're happy with. Lots of people do that one. You can see immediately I did it wrong, because this finger, if I do it this way around, somehow it doesn't seem quite as comfortable as that. I think it's to do with the angle of the wrist, to get the height of this. So it's difficult to see on here, but you see you need a good arch to go through, and it's easier for me to get the arch when I'm coming from here than if I'm already down there and my hands are going backwards, and it just doesn't feel as comfortable. So number 1 on the teaching notes sheet says ways to play D. There are possible 84, including some, but only a few are sensible, and then the most common. Now, one of the reasons I called it the D.O. Blues is that O was going to represent open. Of course, we all know that is the chord C6 or A minor 7, but I didn't want to call it C6 or A minor 7 because you could play an A minor 7 up here, and that wouldn't be the same idea. It was be an A minor 7 chord, but it isn't the one that is open. Another idea that I wanted to put in was how to talk about chords in a way that makes sense to an audience who are listening to you and doing it and are very good at maths and know their numbers, and with my grandson Edward, we came up with this idea of this open chord also has the numerical representation of 0 because there's nothing happening. 0, 0. If we have a digit for each of our strings, then if I play a chord of C, in that position it would be 0, 0, 0, 3, which is, as a 4-digit number, just 3. If I did this version of C, which is 5, 4, 3, 7, it would be 5,437. So a G chord in standard position will be 232, C7 will be 1, C major 7 will be 2, A minor could be 2000, or it could be 2003. So this is a nice compact way of being able to tell students what they're going to play. Sometimes people look at your hand and they've got to turn it round and identify what you're doing, and some people find that quite difficult to do automatically. We can write it down, but if we're just talking, then we've got the flexibility to say, yeah, well, don't play G 238, play it 4,235 and do that one. And I found it a good shorthand. Now this piece, the D.O. Blues, is in the key of D. And you can see at the beginning of the notation part the 2 sharps for a D, which gives you a C sharp and an F sharp, or F sharp and C sharp. One thing you could teach your students to do is play the scale of D. Sorry, let's get it right. Now that's the way without open strings. At the second position, then when I get to the A, I'm playing it with my little finger, C sharp with finger 4. And that pattern is the one that I recommend for people doing when they're doing the VCM exams. It's the way I've written them down. The other way of doing this scale is to play it with the open E and the open A. So you've got those 2 choices. The other choice that you obviously have is how you're going to finger it. Could you play it all with your thumb? Of course you can. Can you play it with just finger I? Could you do it with a walking pattern? Now there I was using free strokes, but I could do it with rest strokes, where after a note my finger comes to rest on the string below. Just watched a lovely playing of a Bach piece by a very rapid Hawaiian ukulele player, and he was doing PI. So that's the scale. Now, underneath the scale, on the teaching note sheet, I've put the letter names. And one of my ideas about singing a scale is that you use a system which I called Fatfish. And you can find all the details in the self-accompanied singing syllabus from me or from Victoria College. And in that, because I want to sing F sharp, but that's 2 syllables, I called it fish. Every sharp would have an ish sound. So if I was doing the scale of D, D, E, fish, G, A, B, fish, D, fish, B, A, G, fish, E, D. So you get that effect. And it means that your students will be learning, as they learn the scales, the notes actually in the scale and not just a pattern. Because once you've done that pattern, move it up to there and it's E flat, move it up to there and you get an F sharp, and so on. But would you know what the notes are? And doing this little exercise, writing them out and then learning where the notes are is a very important thing. A chord in the piece is A7, and I've used that shape 0, 1, 0, 0, or in my terminology 100. Very useful chord A7. You can do all these ways where you can leave the G, A and E string open, and you've got the C sharp there. If you did that, it would just become an A really, not a, because you'd be doubling the E. There you're doubling the G, there you're doubling the A. Make your students aware of what the notes are that they're playing, and gradually all this theoretical stuff will start to work out. One of the things I've said on my sheet in part 4 is to find and play these other A7 shapes. Now there's a very nice one. If you just go 454, 0454, it's just like G moved up, but it really is an A7. It's exactly the same notes as this, which is a more standard way of doing it. But if you wanted that most famous tune I know which uses this idea is 8 Days a Week. Where that second chord in it is this A7, then you put a sus in it. Okay, so we've got that one, 2,434, and 6,757 is there, and then one which I love demonstrating, the fact that I can bar with my third finger. Not always well, but there it goes. 9, 9, 9, 10. Of course there are other ways of playing it. You could even do this one, where you're doing all 4 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4. Explain to your students what it means by a dominant seventh, and if you can, tell them why it's such an important chord, maybe even more important than the dominant. One of the ideas in the DO blues is to get a mute. Silences are golden. Now when I get to that first silence, I can just do it bringing my little finger down to stop the strings. You could use part of your right hand as well. Try and get your students to work out how this muting is going to work and what they can do with it. One of my favourite examples would be Rock Around the Clock, where I'm muting every string apart from the G by lightly touching. Then I open this one to get the E playing as well. Then open the G. Then you go. To the tune. Another one which was exactly the same idea is Mendelssohn's Wedding March. Then what's the chord? It goes to there. I'm not sure that I got the rhythm of that exactly, but you know what I mean. And this idea of finding how fingers can affect other strings than just by playing the one you want to sound. And the last section for the teaching notes of the DO blues is to realise it is a standard 12-bar pattern blues. So you've got D followed by a G followed by a D, A7, G, D, and then an A7 bar before you go back to the beginning again. Rewrite it and play it in other keys. For instance, if I was doing it in the key of G, I could have this. I'm still going to use the open, so it's going to be the GO blues. Go for it. Etc. Notice there I used that version of a C rather than that, because that is so similar to, I wanted more of a change, so I went to that one instead. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this. It's not really me playing a piece very much, but it is meant to be a set of teaching notes. And of course, those you can get from me at colinrtribe@btinternet.com. All totally free. Take care and enjoy your ukulele.